Good afternoon. I should thank the invitation. I should thank you all for taking the time to attend this discussion. Before turning to the main issue, I think that I should present it. I'm Diogo Feio. I'm the Econ Rapporteur for PST2, and I'm working very closely with my colleague Pablo Zalba, a Spanish MEP, who is responsible for the interchange fees proposal. We are dealing with the two reports as a package, and we hope to keep both proposals together until the final vote in plenary, we hope in April of this year. The main purpose of my words is to outline, first, some general observations regarding the PSD2 proposal. Second, move on to some particular issues. And finally, a few remarks about the impacts this package will have on the market. Insofar as the general observations are concerned, I should like to begin by giving you an idea of the state of play with regard to the directive. At the moment, we are still in an early phase of the work on PSD2, with the consideration of amendments to be discussed in Econ Committee by mid-February. Up until now, our main focus has been on gathering information from the various stakeholders, as this includes the banks, representatives of the various means of payment, traders, and organizations responsible for defining consumer rights. This information gathering exercise has allowed us to identify the main problems and the different more delicate areas of the proposal and will influence the modifications to be introduced in the final report. I shall not struggle anymore about the need or not to revise the first PSD text. I shall instead focus on the gains that revising such text shall bring to the EU, namely in achieving a true internal market. Firstly, PSD1 was adopted 7 years ago, and since then we have had an extraordinary development in terms of e-commerce and alternative methods of payment. These include PayPal, smartphones applications, or third-party payments providers. Furthermore, online commerce has increased dramatically over the past years, creating the need for innovation in the payment market. One of the main objectives of the new directive is to adapt legislation to the new realities of payment service and to boost innovation in this market. Secondly, as is often the case, the text of the first PSD was extremely complicated. As things already stand for the moment, PSD2 remains a tangle of rules that are not always clear and easy to interpret. This will, of course, represent difficulties in terms of implementation and transposition. As a result, considerable simplification is required, and an effort must be made in the direction of greater clarity and easy application. Thirdly, with regard to the Commission concerns regarding competition, it seems to me that one of the purposes of the proposal is to open up the market to new players. I believe that legislation should foster the conditions for a dynamic and open payments market with the fewest possible distortions. Whether or not this is actually the case with the Commission proposal is open to question, but my feeling is that the directive has opened a number of doors that this has been useful. I'm thinking in particular of access of the market for third payment providers or TPPs and the desire to provide appropriate European legislation with regard to the question of supervision. Turning now to my second point. This concerns about 5 specific considerations concerning the PSD2 proposal and rationale underlying the different amendments that I have proposed. First, the first issue involves the actual nature of the contribution made by the third-party payment services, or TPPs. There is a degree of disagreement with regard to the role of these bodies. On the one hand, it would seem that most traditional players tend to express reserves about the importance that the Commission has attributed to this phenomenon. In particular, traditional players argue that there are difficulties with the security of transactions and of data. However, it might also be supposed that they also tend to fear the competition. On the other hand, as far as I have been able to establish, TPP will have a relatively limited extension. They do not operate on a worldwide basis, they do not have significant market share or consumers, and finally, banks and retailers are not yet familiar with their operations. In other words, TPP provokes a degree of hostility from traditional players, and they still have already limited extension. The question of how TPPs are to be overseen is situated between these two considerations. However, TPP already play a role in the market, and it is to be predicted that they will grow in significance over the course of the coming years. As a result, it is necessary to seek a middle way between the reservations concerning reliability expressed by more conservative force in the market and the innovations that the Commission proposal seeks to promote. My own attitude is that, firstly, TPPs do not represent a valid alternative means of payments when compared with existing facilities, and that, secondly, they do not represent a threat to proper functioning of the existing system. On the contrary, it is quite possible that they will actually boost to e-commerce and transnational transactions. This is not to say, however, that there is no need to prevent abuse and the illicit use of payment initiation service, and I shall shortly return to the question of security.